I am 26 years old, and my husband Liam is 28. We had been trying for a baby for 4 long years. Every month was a cycle of hope, followed by a quiet, crushing disappointment. We went through tests and treatments. We held each other through tears and moments of near despair. When I finally saw those two pink lines on the pregnancy test, it felt like the sun was coming out after a long, gray winter. Our world, which had been so small and focused on this one single want, suddenly burst open with color and possibility. We were overjoyed. We were terrified. But most of all, we were finally going to be parents. The first few months were a blur of morning sickness and secret smiles. We decided to wait until the second trimester to tell our families. We wanted to be sure. We wanted to hold this precious secret close to our hearts for just a little while longer. When we finally announced it, everyone was thrilled. My parents cried. Liam's parents started buying baby clothes the very next day. There were phone calls and cards and a general feeling of celebration that wrapped around us like a warm blanket. Everyone was happy for us. Or so I thought. My older sister Jenna was a different story. On the surface, she was just as excited as everyone else. She hugged me tightly and said all the right things. "I'm so happy for you," she'd gushed. "You're going to be a wonderful mother." But underneath the smiles, there was something else. I could feel it in the way her hugs were just a little too brief, her smile just a little too tight. Jenna had always been the center of our family's universe. She was the beautiful one, the successful one, the one who always had a dramatic story to tell. I was the quiet one, the steady one. I had never been a threat. But now I had something she didn't. I had this miracle growing inside me and the attention that came with it. The little comments started almost immediately. When I mentioned I was tired, she would say, "Oh, just wait. You think you're tired now? It gets so much worse." When I talked about our plans for the nursery, she would offer helpful advice that felt more like criticism. "Are you sure about that color? It's a little drab, isn't it?" Liam noticed it right away. He would squeeze my hand under the table or change the subject when Jenna started in on me. "She's just jealous," he would murmur to me later. "Don't let her get to you." I tried to follow his advice. I told myself she didn't mean it. I told myself this was just her way. I wanted to keep the peace. I wanted our family to be happy together. The idea for a gender reveal party came from my mother. "It will be so much fun," she said. "A real celebration for the whole family." I was hesitant at first. It felt a little over the top for us. We were private people. But Liam convinced me. "You deserve this," he said. "You deserve a day that's all about you and this baby. Let's celebrate." So I agreed. We planned a small gathering in our backyard. We ordered a cake, got some decorations, and arranged for the big moment, a giant black balloon filled with either pink or blue confetti. The plan was simple. At the end of the party, we would gather everyone around and someone would pop the balloon. The question of who would do the popping came up a week before the party. My mother suggested Jenna. "It would be such a lovely gesture," she said. "The baby's aunt getting to announce the big news." I felt a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I didn't want Jenna to have that role. I couldn't explain why, not in a way my mother would understand. It was just a feeling. A bad feeling. But when I hesitated, my mother pressed. "Don't be silly. She's your sister. It will mean so much to her." I didn't want to cause a fight. I didn't want to seem petty or ungrateful. So I gave in. "Okay," I said quietly. "Jenna can pop the balloon." The day of the party was bright and sunny. Our backyard was filled with the chatter and laughter of our friends and family. Everyone was so kind, so full of genuine happiness for us. They touched my belly and asked how I was feeling. They told Liam he was glowing. For a few hours, I forgot my anxiety about Jenna. I let myself relax and enjoy the moment. I watched Liam moving through the crowd, his face lit up with a proud, happy smile, and I felt a wave of love for him so strong it almost took my breath away. He had been my rock through everything. Then, it was time. Liam and I stood together in the center of the lawn. My father brought out the big black balloon, holding it carefully. It bobbed in the slight breeze, a perfect sphere of mystery. Liam handed a pin to Jenna. She stepped forward, a wide, theatrical smile on her face. She looked at me, her eyes glittering with something I couldn't name. "Ready, little sister?" she asked. I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. The moment we had been waiting for. Everyone had their phones out, ready to record. The air was thick with anticipation. Jenna raised the pin. She made a big show of it, winking at the crowd. "Drumroll, please," she called out. A few of our cousins playfully obliged, tapping on the picnic table. She held the pin to the surface of the balloon. I held my breath. Liam squeezed my hand. Then, she pushed the pin in. Pop. The balloon burst with a loud bang, but instead of a shower of pink or blue, nothing happened. A few sad shreds of black latex fluttered to the grass. The space where the balloon had been was just empty air. A confused silence fell over the party. People lowered their phones, looking at each other. Was this a mistake? Did the shop forget to put the confetti in? Then Jenna's voice cut through the silence. Loud and clear and dripping with fake sympathy. She turned to me, her smile gone, replaced by a look of pity. She gestured to the empty space. "It's empty," she announced to our silent, watching family. Then she looked right at me, her eyes cold. Just like her. The world stopped. The blood drained from my face. The sounds of the party, the birds, the distant traffic, all faded into a dull roar in my ears. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. It wasn't just a joke. It was a direct, vicious stab at the 4 years of pain and loss we had endured. It was meant to humiliate me, to remind me of my struggle, to paint me as broken in front of everyone we loved. I could feel dozens of eyes on me, filled with pity and embarrassment. I felt small. I felt exposed. Tears pricked at the back of my eyes, hot and shameful. I wanted to disappear. My mother rushed forward, her face a mask of frantic concern. "Jenna, what a terrible thing to say," she scolded, but there was no real heat in it. It was the same tone she always used, the one that meant, "Let's smooth this over quickly." My father just stood there looking helpless. Jenna didn't even flinch. She just shrugged, a picture of innocence. "What? It was just a joke. Can't she take a joke?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. All I could do was stand there, frozen in a bubble of shock and hurt. The beautiful, sunny day had turned ugly. The celebration was ruined. This moment, which was supposed to be one of the happiest of our lives, was now a scar. And my own sister had been the one to inflict it. I looked at her, standing there so smug and self-satisfied, and a cold, hard anger began to form in the pit of my stomach. Pushing past the hurt, this was not a joke. This was a declaration of war. Then something strange happened. Liam, who I expected to be yelling, to be confronting Jenna, did nothing of the sort. He had been silent beside me, his hand still holding mine. His grip was firm, steady. I looked up at him. His face was calm. Too calm. There was no shock, no confusion. There was only a quiet, focused intensity in his eyes. He looked at Jenna, then at my parents, then at the stunned faces of our guests. He took a deep breath. He turned to me, his voice low so only I could hear it. "It's okay," he whispered. "I've got this." He gave my hand another squeeze, a signal. And then he stepped forward, away from me, and addressed the silent crowd. "Well," he said, his voice perfectly even, almost cheerful. "That was certainly a surprise." He smiled, a small, knowing smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. But not the one we were hoping for. He paused, letting the tension hang in the air. Jenna looked at him, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her face. This was not the reaction she had expected. She had wanted tears. She had wanted drama. She had not expected this unnerving calm. Liam continued, his gaze sweeping over our family. It seems there was a bit of a mix-up with the balloons. He looked directly at Jenna. Someone must have tampered with the one we had planned to use. My heart skipped a beat. Tampered with? What was he talking about? But luckily, Liam said, his voice rising just a little, capturing everyone's full attention. I had a feeling something like this might happen. He turned and walked toward the house. The crowd parted for him, a sea of confused faces. I watched him go, my own confusion warring with a dawning sense of hope. What did he mean? What feeling did he have? He disappeared inside for a moment, and the backyard was filled with nervous whispers. My mother started to say something to me, probably another useless platitude, but I held up a hand to stop her. I didn't want to hear it. My eyes were fixed on the door to our house. Then Liam reappeared, and in his hands he was holding another balloon. It was identical to the first one, a perfect giant black sphere. A collective gasp went through the crowd. My mother's mouth fell open. My father stared, speechless. Jenna's face, which had been so smug just moments before, was now a canvas of pure, unfiltered shock. Her eyes darted from the new balloon in Liam's hands to my face, and then back again. The color drained from her cheeks. Liam walked back to the center of the lawn and stood beside me. He held the balloon up for everyone to see. Like I said, he announced, his voice ringing with a new authority. We had a feeling we should have a backup. He looked at me, and this time his smile was real. It was full of love and a hint of mischief. It seems my wife's sister wanted her own special moment, so we let her have it. He then looked over at a stunned Jenna. We hope you enjoyed it, Jenna, he said, his tone polite but edged with steel. Because now my wife and I are going to have ours. The shock that had paralyzed me began to melt away, replaced by a dizzying mix of emotions. Relief, so profound it made my knees weak. Love for my husband, so fierce it felt like a physical force. And a dawning, awestruck understanding. He had known. He had anticipated her cruelty. He had planned for it. He had protected our moment, protected me, in a way I never could have imagined. He hadn't just gotten angry. He had gotten smart. Liam held the balloon with one hand and offered me the pin with the other. My hand was shaking as I took it. I looked at the balloon, then at my husband's steady, loving face. Then I let my gaze travel across the lawn to my sister. She was standing frozen, her face pale, her eyes wide with disbelief and the first flicker of genuine fear. Her plan had not just failed, it had backfired in the most public and spectacular way possible. She had tried to make me look empty and foolish, and instead, Liam had made her look like the fool. I looked at my parents, who were staring at Jenna as if seeing her for the first time. I looked at my aunts and uncles and cousins, their expressions shifting from pity for me to confusion and suspicion toward her. The power dynamic in our family, a dynamic that had been fixed for my entire life, had just been shattered. With my eyes locked on Jenna's, I raised the pin. I didn't need a drum roll. I didn't need any more theatrics. The statement had already been made. I pushed the pin into the smooth, black surface. The balloon burst with a satisfyingly loud pop, and this time, the air filled with a brilliant, joyful explosion of blue. It rained down all around us, tiny pieces of paper dancing in the sunlight, dusting our hair and shoulders. It's a boy. A cheer went up from the crowd, hesitant at first, then growing louder as the reality of the moment sank in. People were clapping, smiling, rushing forward to hug us. The party, which had died just minutes before, was suddenly alive again, more vibrant than ever. Through the shower of blue confetti, I saw Liam watching me, his eyes full of pride. I threw my arms around his neck, laughing and crying at the same time. How did you know? I whispered into his ear. I know you, he whispered back, holding me tight. And I know her. Across the lawn, forgotten in the celebration, Jenna stood alone. Her moment was over. Ours was just beginning. And in that moment, I knew two things for certain. We were having a son, and nothing in our family would ever be the same again. Later that evening, after the last of our guests had gone, Liam and I sat together on the sofa in our quiet living room. The blue confetti was still scattered across the lawn, tiny specks of joy winking in the twilight. The house was filled with gifts and leftover cake, but the air was still charged with the energy of the afternoon's events. I was exhausted, but my mind was racing. I turned to Liam, who was watching me with a gentle expression. "You have to tell me everything," I said. "When did you know? How did you do it?" He took my hand. "I started getting suspicious a few weeks ago," he began. "It was all the little things Jenna was saying. The helpful comments that were really just digs at you. The way she would bring up your past struggles with fertility in front of other people, disguised as concern." I nodded, remembering. "I noticed it too," I said. "But I just tried to ignore it. I didn't want to cause trouble." "I know," he said softly. "That's who you are. You're the peacemaker. But I'm not, and I could see where it was going. She couldn't stand that you were getting all this attention. She couldn't stand that you were so happy." He told me how he had started paying closer attention. He saw how Jenna's questions were becoming more specific, more probing. She had asked him very casually which party supply store we were using for the balloon. She had asked my mother who was in charge of picking it up. "That was the red flag for me," Liam said. "Why would she care about that? Unless she was planning to interfere with it." My stomach clenched. "So you thought she might try to switch the confetti or something?" I asked. He shook his head. "I thought she might do something worse. Something more like her. Something designed to hurt you, not just to play a prank. That's when I came up with the idea for a backup plan. A decoy." The day before the party, Liam had gone to the party store himself. He had bought 2 identical giant black balloons. He took them to a different shop, one on the other side of town, to have them filled. The baker who made our cake was the only other person who knew the baby's gender. Liam had arranged for the baker to give the information directly to the balloon shop. He had them fill one balloon with the blue confetti. The other, he instructed them to leave completely empty. "The empty one was the official party balloon," he explained. "It's the one my mom picked up. It's the one we brought out for everyone to see." I kept the real one hidden in the garage, inside a storage box. I stared at him, my mind reeling. The level of forethought was astonishing. "But what if she hadn't done anything?" I asked. "What if she had just popped the balloon and it was empty? We would have looked like idiots." "No," he said firmly. "If she had popped it and it was empty, and she had acted surprised and disappointed along with everyone else, I would have immediately stepped in. I would have said, 'Oh no, the store must have made a mistake. Good thing I double-checked with them this morning and they gave me a replacement.' Then I would have brought out the real balloon and we would have had our reveal. It would have been a slightly awkward story, but the day wouldn't have been ruined. Jenna would have looked innocent, and we would have still had our happy moment." He leaned in closer, his expression serious. "But I didn't think that's what would happen. I gambled on her character. I bet that she wouldn't be able to resist the opportunity to be cruel. I bet that if I gave her an empty stage, she would put on a show." "And she did," I whispered, the memory of her words still stinging. "It's empty, just like her." "She did," Liam confirmed, his voice hard. "She walked right into it. She showed everyone exactly who she is. She took the bait and exposed herself." I felt a chill go down my spine. It was brilliant. It was ruthless. And it was done out of love for me. He had seen the attack coming and had not just deflected it, but turned it back on the attacker. He had given Jenna the rope, and she had eagerly tied her own noose. "I can't believe you did all that," I said, shaking my head in amazement. "And you didn't tell me." He looked at me, his eyes full of regret. "That's the part I feel bad about," he said. "I'm so sorry I didn't tell you, honey. I thought about it 100 times. But I knew if I told you, you would worry." You would spend the whole party stressed out, watching her, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Or you would have tried to stop me. You would have said it was too much, that we should just take the high road. He was right. I would have. I wanted you to have a genuinely happy day, he continued. I wanted you to enjoy your party. And I knew that if she did what I thought she would do, the shock and hurt would be real. And I needed it to be real for everyone else to see it clearly. I'm sorry I had to let you feel that pain. Even for a minute, it was the hardest part of the plan. I thought about that minute. The crushing humiliation, the feeling of being exposed. It was awful. But then I thought about the moment that followed. The moment Liam stepped forward, calm and in control. The moment he revealed the second balloon. The wave of vindication was so powerful, it had washed away all the hurt. He hadn't just saved the day. He had given me a gift far greater than a party. He had shown me that I was no longer alone in dealing with my sister's toxicity. He was in my corner and he would fight for me. I leaned my head against his shoulder. Don't be sorry, I said. You were right. And you were amazing. But what happens now? The joy of the day was beginning to fade, replaced by the cold reality of the fallout. My parents, I started. Your parents are going to have to make a choice. Liam finished for me, his tone firm. They can either continue to enable her behavior or they can start supporting you and their future grandchild. After what she did today, in front of 30 people, they can't pretend they don't see it anymore. The blinders are off. Just then, my phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a text from my mother. I picked it up, my hand trembling slightly. The message read, Jenna is very upset. She said you and Liam set her up to humiliate her. I think you owe her an apology for tricking her. I read the message out loud to Liam. A bitter, humorless laugh escaped my lips. An apology? I said in disbelief. We owe her an apology? Liam took the phone from my hand and read the message himself. His jaw tightened. The calm, strategic man from the party was gone, replaced by a husband simmering with cold fury. Unbelievable, he muttered. After all that, they still don't get it. They're still protecting her. This is what they always do, I said, my voice flat. The old familiar feeling of resignation washed over me. Jenna does something awful. I get upset. And somehow I end up being the one who has to apologize to make things right. To keep the peace. Not this time, Liam said, his voice like flint. This time is different. We are not apologizing. We are not smoothing this over. We are not keeping the peace. The peace was broken the moment she decided to use our child to hurt you. He stood up and began to pace the living room. This isn't over, he said, more to himself than to me. The party was just the beginning. If they want to double down on defending her, then we need to be prepared. Prepared for what? I asked, a new sense of dread creeping in. What else can we do? He stopped pacing and looked at me, a determined glint in his eye. We need to find out why she's really doing this, he said. The jealousy is part of it, sure. But this level of cruelty, it feels like something more. It feels desperate. We need to understand her motive. And we need more leverage. The balloon trick worked for today. But to change things for good, we need something they can't ignore or explain away. I thought about his words. Leverage, motive. It sounded so calculated, so cold. But the memory of my mother's text message, demanding I apologize to the sister who had just publicly savaged me, hardened my heart. Liam was right. This was a pattern. A toxic cycle that had been spinning for years. And now, with a baby on the way, I couldn't afford to be the peacemaker anymore. I had to be a protector. Okay, I said, my voice stronger now. What do we do first? Liam sat back down beside me, his mind clearly already working. First, he said, we talk to people. The people who were there today. Someone must have heard something or seen something before the party. We need to corroborate what we already suspect, that this was a premeditated act. The next morning, I called my cousin, Sarah. She had always been one of the more level-headed members of our family. I trusted her. I started by thanking her for coming to the party and for her lovely gift. Then I took a deep breath and asked the question. Sarah, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest with me, I said. Did you notice anything strange about Jenna's behavior before the party? Or during? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Oh, honey, she said, her voice full of sympathy. I'm so sorry about what happened. It was horrible. And yes, something was definitely off with her. Sarah told me she had been at my parents' house the day before the party. Jenna was there, and she was on her phone talking to one of her friends. She was in the other room, but she was talking so loudly, Sarah explained. I couldn't help but overhear. She was laughing. She said she had a hilarious surprise planned for your gender reveal. She said it was time for someone to bring you back down to earth. I didn't know what she meant at the time. I thought maybe she had bought some silly gag gift. I never imagined she would do something so cruel. My blood ran cold. She actually said that? Bring me back down to earth? Word for word, Sarah confirmed. And she was cackling about it. It was unsettling. That was the corroboration Liam had been talking about. It was proof that this wasn't a spontaneous joke gone wrong, as my mother would inevitably try to claim. It was planned. It was malicious. After I got off the phone with Sarah, I called my best friend, Chloe, who had helped me set up the decorations. I asked her if Jenna had spoken to her at all. Spoken to me? She basically interrogated me, Chloe said, her voice laced with anger on my behalf. She cornered me by the drink table and started asking all these weirdly specific questions. So, who's in charge of the balloon? Are you sure it's filled correctly? Where did you guys get it from? I thought it was strange, but I just figured she was being her usual controlling self, trying to manage everything. Chloe paused. But now, oh my God, she was probing for weaknesses. She was trying to figure out how she could mess with it. That witch. The pieces were fitting together, painting a picture that was even uglier than I had imagined. Jenna hadn't just had a mean idea. She had done research. She had planned her attack with methodical precision. I told Liam what Sarah and Chloe had said. He nodded slowly, absorbing the information. Okay, he said. So we have motive, jealousy. We have premeditation. What we don't have is the why now. What's making her so desperate? That was the question that haunted us for the next few days. The answer, when it came, was from an unexpected source. My Aunt Carol, my father's sister. She called me ostensibly to check on how I was doing. After a few minutes of pleasantries, she lowered her voice. Listen, dear, she said. I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm worried. I had a long talk with your father after the party. He was very shaken up. Not just by what Jenna did, but by the why. What did he say? I asked, sitting up straighter. It turns out Jenna is in some serious financial trouble, Aunt Carol said. She lost her job a couple of months ago and didn't tell anyone. She's been living off her credit cards, and now they're maxed out. She's been asking your parents for a huge amount of money to bail her out. I was stunned. Jenna had always been so boastful about her career, her fancy apartment, her designer clothes. The idea of her being broke was almost impossible to comprehend. But your parents? Aunt Carol continued, her voice hesitant. They had to tell her no. They explained that they've been spending a lot of money helping you and Liam get ready for the baby. They're helping with the down payment on a bigger house for you, remember? They told Jenna they just don't have that kind of cash to spare right now. And there it was, the final ugly piece of the puzzle. It all clicked into place. Jenna wasn't just jealous of my happiness. She wasn't just craving attention. She saw my baby, my son, as a direct financial threat. Every dollar my parents spent on us was a dollar they weren't spending on her. The gender reveal party, the gifts, the talk of a new house. It all represented money that she felt was rightfully hers. Her cruel comment, "It's empty, just like her," wasn't just an attack on my past infertility. It was a strategic move. She was trying to paint me as a pathetic, unstable drama queen. She wanted to create a scene, make me cry, make me look weak and irrational in front of the whole family. She was likely hoping that if she could cause enough drama, my parents would get fed up. They might think, this is all too much stress, and pull back their support for us. Then they would have the money to give to her. The empty balloon wasn't just a moment of cruelty. It was an act of financial desperation. I told Liam everything Aunt Carol had said. He listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with every word. "So that's it," he said when I finished. "She's trying to sabotage us. Not just our happiness, but our future, our home. All for money." The anger I had felt at the party was nothing compared to the cold, hard rage that now settled in my chest. This was a level of betrayal I could barely comprehend. She was willing to weaponize my deepest pain and my greatest joy, all to secure a financial bailout. "They're still defending her," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "Even now, Mom is texting me, saying Jenna is the real victim here, that we embarrassed her." "That's because they don't know the full story," Liam said. "They don't know she's broke. They don't know she did this out of financial desperation. They're still operating under the assumption that it was a joke." He looked at me, his eyes blazing. "We need to change that. We need to control the narrative, and we need to do it in a way they can never deny." That's when he proposed the next stage of his plan, a family reconciliation dinner. "We'll invite your parents and Jenna to our house," he said. "We'll tell them we want to talk things through, clear the air, and move forward for the sake of the family. Your mom will jump at the chance. She'll think we're finally ready to apologize and put it all behind us." "Apologize?" I scoffed. "I will never apologize to her." "You won't have to," Liam said, a grim smile on his face. "We'll let them walk in thinking they have all the power. We'll let your mom make her speech about forgiveness. We'll let Jenna play the victim. And just when they're at their most self-righteous..." He trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. "What, Liam?" I pressed. "What do we do then? Just telling them she's broke isn't enough. They'll say we're making it up to be vindictive." "I know," he said. "That's why we're not just going to tell them. We're going to show them. We just need one more piece of evidence, something undeniable." His words sent a shiver down my spine. "What are you thinking?" He looked towards the hallway in the direction of our front door. "Your parents have a spare key to our house, right?" "Yes," I said. "Mom insisted, for emergencies." Liam nodded slowly. "I have a feeling your sister knows where they keep it." A new, terrible thought began to form in my mind. "Liam, you don't think she came into our house, do you?" "The decoy balloon was in the living room the night before the party," he said, his voice low and thoughtful. "I put it there myself, but to tamper with it, she would have had to get to it. How else could she have done it?" The idea of Jenna sneaking into our home, our sanctuary, felt like a physical violation. It made my skin crawl. "We can't prove that," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Maybe we can," Liam replied. He stood up and went to his office, returning a moment later with a small black object in his hand. It was a tiny security camera, no bigger than a sugar cube. "I bought a few of these after that string of break-ins in the neighborhood last year," he said. "I put one up overlooking the front porch, but I never got around to installing the others. I think it's time we put one to use." His plan was audacious. He wanted to recreate the scene. He suggested we send a text to my parents, a carefully worded message designed to trigger Jenna. We would mention that we had found some irregularities with the party supplies and were looking into it with the store. "We'll mention the balloon specifically," he said. "We'll say the store manager is checking their security footage. It's a lie, of course. But if Jenna tampered with that balloon inside our house, she might panic. She might try to come back to see if she left any evidence behind, Or maybe she'll try to plant something to make it look like a manufacturing defect. And the camera? I asked. I'll install it tonight, he said, his eyes glinting. It will be hidden in the living room, pointed directly at the spot where the balloon was. If she comes back, we'll have her. We'll have everything. It was a long shot, a wild, desperate gamble. But as I thought about my mother's texts and my sister's smiling, cruel face, I knew we had to try. This was no longer just about a ruined party. It was about protecting our home, our family, and our future from a predator who wore my sister's face. Let's do it, I said. The next 2 days were a masterclass in quiet tension. Liam installed the tiny camera on a bookshelf, hidden between a stack of novels and a photo frame. It was virtually invisible, but it had a clear, wide-angle view of the living room, focusing on the area where the decoy balloon had been sitting before the party. He then sent the text message to my mother. Hi, Mom, it read. We're still so confused about what happened with the balloon. We spoke to the party store and they swear it was filled correctly. The manager is being really helpful and is going to review their security footage from the day they filled it to see if one of their employees made a mistake or if the balloon was defective. Hopefully we can get to the bottom of it soon. It was the perfect bait. It offered a potential out for Jenna, a defective product, a store employee's error. But it also introduced the threat of security footage, a detail designed to make her nervous. Now all we could do was wait. We went about our days as normally as possible. I went to a doctor's appointment. Liam went to work. But we were both on edge, constantly checking our phones, watching the live feed from the camera whenever we had a spare moment. The living room remained empty and silent. I started to think maybe we had misjudged her. Maybe she wasn't as predictable as Liam thought. Then, on the second afternoon, it happened. I was at home, folding baby clothes in the nursery when my phone buzzed with an alert from the camera app. Motion detected in living room. My heart leaped into my throat. I quickly opened the app, my hands shaking. The live feed showed our front door opening. And then, my sister Jenna slipped inside. She was wearing sunglasses and a hoodie, as if in disguise. She closed the door silently behind her and stood for a moment, listening. My blood ran cold. She had used the spare key. She was in our house. I watched, frozen as she moved into the living room, her eyes scanning the area. She went directly to the spot where the balloon had been. She got down on her hands and knees, peering at the carpet. Was she looking for a dropped pin? A shred of latex? I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was a complete violation. Then she pulled out her phone and made a call. I strained to hear, but the camera's microphone wasn't strong enough to pick up her words clearly from where I was. But I didn't need to hear them. Her body language said it all. She was agitated, pacing back and forth, gesturing wildly. She was panicking. After a few minutes, she hung up, took one last look around, and then slipped back out the front door as silently as she had entered. I immediately called Liam. She was here, I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and vindication. She was in the house. The camera got it all. Did she say anything? He asked, his voice tense. She was on the phone, but I couldn't make out the words, I said. But Liam, we have it. We have proof she came back. We have proof she's scared. That's good, he said. But it's not the smoking gun. Her being in the house is suspicious, but she could claim she was just dropping something off. We need more. He was right. We had her on trespassing, but we still couldn't definitively tie her to the balloon itself. Frustration and disappointment washed over me. We were so close. Don't worry, Liam said, as if reading my mind. This isn't over. She's rattled. She's making mistakes. We just have to be patient. That evening, Liam came home and immediately went to his computer to review the footage from the camera. He spent hours on it, using software to clean up the audio from the recording of Jenna's phone call. The sound quality was poor, distorted by the distance and the acoustics of the room. But Liam was patient. He isolated the track, filtered out the background noise, and amplified the vocals. Finally, after nearly 2 hours of work, he called me into his office. "I think I got something," he said. He played the clip. The audio was still fuzzy, but this time I could make out words. It was Jenna's voice, high-pitched and frantic. "Told me they're checking security tapes at the store," she was saying. "What if they see something? No, I don't think I dropped the needle. I looked everywhere. What do you mean, go back? I'm already here. I used Mom's key. Just tell me what to do. If they find out, I'm ruined. Dad will never give me the money." I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth. It was all there. A confession. She admitted to being in our house using my mother's key. She mentioned the needle she must have used to pop the balloon. And most importantly, she confirmed the motive. Dad will never give me the money. But there was more. Liam had kept working on the audio from the phone call. There was another voice on the line, a friend of Jenna's, and then Liam found something that made my blood turn to ice. He had managed to isolate a different part of the audio, a section from before the party. It wasn't a live recording. It was a recording of a phone call. The camera had been on, in a low power mode, and had captured audio from a call Jenna had made while she was inside our house before the party. Liam had found the original SIN. The camera had been set up by him days before the party as a test run. He had forgotten it was even on. It was a stroke of pure, dumb luck. He played the audio for me. The quality was much clearer. It was Jenna's voice, but this time it was gleeful, triumphant. She was talking to her friend, clearly right after she had sabotaged the first balloon. "It's done," Jenna said, her voice giddy with malice. "I used the tiniest needle, popped it right at the knot and put a little piece of clear tape over it. They'll never even see the hole. It'll look perfect until she sticks the pin in." She let out a cruel laugh. Can you imagine her face? Everyone watching, waiting, and then just nothing. A sad little pop. It'll be perfect. She'll probably burst into tears. Mom and Dad will finally see what a fragile, hysterical mess she is. They'll get so tired of her drama. Serves her right for getting everything she wants. This baby is costing me a fortune. My breath hitched in my chest. I felt sick. Hearing the words, the sheer, unadulterated venom in her voice was 1,000 times worse than just knowing what she had done. She had relished it. She had savored the thought of my humiliation. She had plotted it with cold, calculating glee. This was it. The key artifact. The undeniable proof. A full confession, recorded in her own voice in our own home. We had her motive, her method, and her own gleeful words to condemn her. Liam looked at me, his face grim. "Now we're ready for that dinner," he said. The reconciliation dinner was set for the following Saturday. I called my mother to invite them. As Liam predicted, she was relieved and delighted. "Oh, sweetie, I'm so glad you're being the bigger person," she said, her voice oozing with satisfaction. "I told your father you would come around. It's best to just put this all behind us. Jenna has been so distraught." Distraught. The word was so absurd I almost laughed. I kept my voice neutral. "We just want to talk," I said. "It will be just the four of us. You, Dad, Jenna, and me and Liam. Saturday at 7. We'll be there," she said. "I'm so proud of you for doing the right thing." The days leading up to the dinner were the calm before the storm. Liam and I were a team, united in our purpose. He prepared the video file, editing the 2 pieces of audio together with the clip of Jenna trespassing in our house. He created a seamless timeline of her crime. First, the audio of her plotting and executing the sabotage. Then, the video of her panicked return to the scene. And finally, the audio of her frantic confession over the phone admitting her motive. He embedded it all into a simple video file, ready to be played on our living room television. I, on the other hand, prepared myself emotionally. I rehearsed what I would say. I practiced staying calm. I was not going to cry. I was not going to yell. I was going to be the picture of cold, righteous anger. I was no longer the peacemaker. I was an executioner. Saturday arrived. I spent the day in a state of quiet focus. I cooked a simple dinner, an absurdly domestic act given the circumstances, a roast chicken. The smell filled the house, a mockery of happy family gatherings. Liam set the table. We moved through the tasks in near silence, a shared, unspoken understanding passing between us. At 6:55, the doorbell rang. Liam squeezed my hand. "Showtime," he murmured. I opened the door. My parents and Jenna stood on the porch. My mother was beaming, holding a bottle of non-alcoholic sparkling cider. My father looked relieved but uncomfortable. And Jenna looked smug. She had the self-satisfied smirk of someone who has won, who has gotten away with it, and is now here to graciously accept the apology of the person she has wronged. "Hello, darling," my mother said, bustling in and giving me a kiss on the cheek. "This all smells wonderful. I'm so glad we're doing this." We moved into the living room. The trap was set. My parents sat on the sofa. Jenna chose an armchair, crossing her legs and looking around the room as if she owned it. Liam and I sat opposite them. The air was thick with unspoken words. My mother, ever the director of our family's dramas, decided to begin. "Well," she said, clapping her hands together. "Here we are. I think it's wonderful that you two," she gestured between me and Jenna, "are ready to put this unfortunate business behind you. Family is the most important thing." She looked at me expectantly. This was my cue. My cue to apologize, to smooth things over, to make everything comfortable for everyone again. I just looked at her. I said nothing. After a few seconds of awkward silence, my mother's smile faltered. "Well?" she prompted. "I think someone has something she'd like to say." Jenna shifted in her chair, a look of theatrical pity on her face. "It's okay, Mom," she said, her voice soft and condescending. "I know this is hard for her. Pregnancy makes you so emotional." That was it. That was the spark that lit the fuse. "I am not emotional, Jenna," I said, my voice low and steady. It didn't tremble. It was as cold and hard as a block of ice. "I am angry," my mother gasped. "Now there's no need for that tone." "I think there is," Liam interjected, his voice calm but firm. He looked at my parents. "We invited you here to talk, it's true. But we did not invite you here for my wife to apologize. We invited you here to listen." My father shifted uncomfortably. "Son, I think we all just want to move on." "We can't move on," I said, my eyes locked on Jenna. "Not until we talk about what you did. Not the joke you told. What you actually did." Jenna scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, here we go again. I said I was sorry if your feelings were hurt. It was a prank. It wasn't that big of a deal." "You're blowing this completely out of proportion." "Was it a prank when you came into our house without our permission the day before the party?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. The smirk on Jenna's face vanished. A flicker of panic flashed in her eyes. "What are you talking about? I didn't—" "Was it a prank when you used a needle to pop the balloon and then carefully taped it up to hide the hole?" I continued, pressing my advantage. My parents looked back and forth between us, their faces a mixture of confusion and alarm. "What is she talking about, Jenna?" my father asked. "She's lying," Jenna shrieked, her voice suddenly shrill. "She's making things up because she's mad at me. She's trying to turn you against me." "Am I lying, Jenna?" I said. "Am I lying about the phone call you made afterwards? Where you laughed about how you couldn't wait to see my face when I realized the balloon was empty?" Jenna's face had gone from pale to chalky white. "You're crazy," she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "You're completely insane." "This is exactly what I mean," my mother cried, turning on me. "You are being cruel. You're attacking your sister with these wild, horrible accusations. You are the one ruining this family, not her. How dare you?" This was the moment Liam had planned for. They had doubled down. They had chosen their side. "You're right," Liam said, standing up. These are horrible accusations, and we wouldn't make them without proof. He picked up the remote control from the coffee table. With a click, the large television on the wall flickered to life. Jenna's eyes shot to the screen, her mouth falling open in horror. "What is this?" my father demanded. "Liam, turn that off." "Just watch," Liam said simply. He pressed play. The first thing that filled the room was Jenna's voice, captured in crystal clear audio. "It's done. I used the tiniest needle, popped it right at the knot." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father stared, his face frozen in disbelief. Jenna looked like she was going to be sick. The audio continued, her gleeful, cruel words filling the silent room. Imagine her face, everyone watching, and then just nothing, a sad little pop. Then the video began. The screen showed our living room from the perspective of the hidden camera. It showed Jenna in her hoodie and sunglasses sneaking into our house. The room was silent except for the sound of my mother's soft, horrified gasps. We watched as Jenna searched the floor, her movements frantic and guilty. Then, the final piece of audio played over the video of her trespassing. Her own panicked voice on the phone. "Dad will never give me the money." When the video ended, the screen went black. The silence in the room was absolute. It was heavy, suffocating. No one moved. No one spoke. The truth in all its ugly, undeniable detail hung in the air between us. I looked at my sister. The smugness was gone. The condescension was gone. All that was left was the raw, ugly face of a person who has been caught, exposed, and utterly defeated. Tears were streaming down her face, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of self-pity, the tears of a cornered animal. My father was the first to speak. His voice was a choked whisper. He wasn't looking at me or at Liam. He was staring at his oldest daughter. "How could you?" he asked. The question was heavy with a pain and betrayal so deep it seemed to suck the air from the room. "How could you be so cruel?" Jenna opened her mouth, but only a sob came out. She couldn't deny it. She couldn't lie her way out of it. We had the proof. My mother was rocking back and forth on the sofa, her face buried in her hands. "I don't understand," she mumbled. "I don't understand." "Yes, you do, Mom," I said, my voice devoid of any warmth. "You just didn't want to. It was always easier to make me the problem. It was always easier to ask me to apologize." I stood up. Liam stood with me. "We invited you here for a reconciliation," I said. "But we are not the ones who need to reconcile. We have done nothing wrong." I looked at Jenna, whose face was now a blotchy, tear-stained mess. "You tried to take something from us," I said. "You tried to ruin the happiest moment of our lives for money. You tried to humiliate me. You tried to turn my family against me." Liam stepped forward. "And because you did that," he said, his voice ringing with authority, "because you tried to steal our joy, we decided we would have our moment right now, with the people who matter." He walked over to the closet by the front door. He opened it and pulled out a box. He placed the box on the coffee table and opened it. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, were 2 small baby outfits. One was blue, one was pink. He had bought them as part of his backup plan in case even the second balloon had somehow failed. He took out the little blue outfit, a tiny onesie with dinosaurs on it, and held it up. "It's a boy," I said, my voice clear and strong as I looked at my stunned parents. "We are having a son. Your grandson." The sight of the tiny outfit, the final confirmation of the life we were bringing into the world, seemed to break the spell. The reality of what Jenna had tried to destroy, of what my parents had been complicit in defending, crashed down on them. My father stood up slowly, his face aged and weary. He looked at Jenna with an expression I had never seen him use before. It was pure, undiluted disappointment. He didn't say a word to her. He just walked to the front door, opened it, and left. The sound of his car starting a moment later was like a final judgment. Jenna let out a wail and tried to go to my mother. "Mommy," she cried, reverting to the language of a child. But my mother flinched away from her touch. She looked up, her eyes red and swollen, and for the first time, she looked at Jenna with something other than blind adoration. She looked at her with shame. She then looked at me, her mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. She got up and followed my father out the door, closing it softly behind her. And then it was just the three of us. Me, Liam, and my sister. She was still crumpled in the armchair, sobbing uncontrollably. It was a pathetic sight. But I felt nothing. No pity, no sympathy, nothing at all. The part of me that had always cared, that had always wanted her approval, was gone. It had been burned away by the acid of her betrayal. "Get out of my house," I said. My voice was flat, emotionless. She looked up at me, her face a mask of desperation. "Please," she begged. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean... I was just so desperate." "I don't care," I said. "Your desperation doesn't give you the right to hurt people. It doesn't give you the right to violate our home and our lives. You are not a victim here, Jenna. You are the villain. And the story is over." Liam stepped forward and opened the front door, holding it wide. "You heard my wife," he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "Leave, now." Jenna stumbled to her feet. She gave me one last pleading look. I just stared back, my face a blank wall. There was nothing left for her here. She had burned it all to the ground herself. With a final, choked sob, she ran out of the house and into the night. Liam closed the door. The click of the lock echoed in the sudden, profound silence. He came over to me and wrapped his arms around me. I leaned into him, finally letting out the breath I felt like I had been holding for days. "It's over," he whispered, kissing the top of my head. "It's really over." I nodded, burying my face in his chest. I didn't cry. I just felt empty. But it wasn't the painful emptiness Jenna had wished upon me. It was a clean, quiet emptiness, the space left behind after something toxic has been surgically removed. The ground was cleared. Now we could finally start to build something new. The days that followed the dinner were quiet. Too quiet. My parents didn't call. Jenna, unsurprisingly, did not try to contact us. It was as if a chasm had opened up in our family, and we were all standing on opposite sides, staring at each other across the void. The silence was heavy, full of unspoken recriminations and shame. A week after the confrontation, a package arrived. It was addressed to me, in my mother's shaky handwriting. Inside was a small velvet box. I opened it. It was a baby bracelet, silver with a tiny charm. There was also a letter. "My dearest daughter," it began. "There are no words to say how sorry I am. Not just for what Jenna did, but for my part in it. For all the years I refused to see. For all the times I asked you to be the bigger person, when what I was really asking was for you to absorb the pain so I didn't have to deal with the problem. I see that now. Watching that video, hearing those words, it was like a lifetime of willful blindness was shattered in an instant. Your father and I have talked. Really talked. Jenna is no longer living with us. We have told her she needs to find a job and get professional help. We have cut her off financially. This is not a punishment, but a consequence. We cannot help her until she is willing to help herself and face what she has done. As for us, your father and I, we know we have a lot to do to earn back your trust. We understand if you need space. We understand if you are not ready to forgive us. But please know, we love you. And we are so, so proud of the family you and Liam are building. We hope that one day we can be a worthy part of it. We love our grandson already." I read the letter twice, then handed it to Liam. He read it and then looked at me, his expression soft. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think it's a start," I said, my voice thick with emotion. It was the first time I had felt anything other than anger or numbness in a week. The apology was real. The actions they were taking were real. It wasn't a quick fix. It was the beginning of a long, difficult road. But for the first time, they were walking in the right direction. A few days later, my Aunt Carol called again. "I heard what happened," she said, her voice low. "Your mother told me everything. I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you, both of you. It took guts to do what you did, and it was long overdue." She paused. "As for Jenna, well, the family is talking. Everyone knows. The story of the two balloons, the video, it's out. No one is taking her calls." She tried to post some vague story on social media about being betrayed by those closest to her. But Sarah and a few of the other cousins immediately commented on it, saying things like, "Maybe you shouldn't have sabotaged your pregnant sister's party for money." She deleted the post within an hour. Jenna was isolated. The social standing she cherished, the image she had so carefully curated, was in ruins. She had tried to make me the family pariah, and in the end, she had become one herself. There was a certain grim satisfaction in that knowledge. The biggest change, however, was in my relationship with Liam. We had always been close, but this experience had forged a new kind of bond between us. It was a partnership built on absolute trust and a shared willingness to protect our family at any cost. We were a fortress. He had seen my vulnerability and had not used it against me, but had built a wall around it. He was my defender, my strategist, my partner in all things. My love for him deepened into a kind of reverence. The remaining months of my pregnancy were peaceful. The cloud of family drama had lifted. My parents kept their distance, but sent small gifts and respectful, loving texts. They were giving me the space I needed, proving with their actions that they were serious about changing. We started looking for a new house, and they transferred the money they had promised for a down payment into our account with a simple note: for our grandson's future. I focused on my health, on preparing for the baby, on the simple joy of feeling him kick and squirm inside me. The anxiety that had been a constant companion for so long was gone, replaced by a quiet confidence. I knew I could handle whatever came my way, because I wasn't alone. Our son, Oliver, was born on a crisp autumn morning. He was perfect. He had Liam's eyes and a full head of dark hair. Holding him in my arms for the first time, all the pain and struggle of the past few years, the drama with my sister, it all just melted away. None of it mattered anymore. All that mattered was this tiny, warm, breathing person in my arms. My parents came to the hospital. They didn't rush in. They waited until a nurse told them we were ready for visitors. They brought a gift, but more importantly, they brought humility. My father held Oliver, and his eyes filled with tears. "He's beautiful," he whispered. "You did so good." My mother just looked at me, her face full of a quiet, profound regret and a dawning love for her grandson that was pure and uncomplicated. The healing had begun. We never heard from Jenna directly. The silence from her was absolute. We learned through the family grapevine that she had moved to a different city, gotten a menial job, and was living in a small shared apartment. She had lost everything: her family's support, her friends, her reputation. She had become invisible, a ghost in the family she had once dominated. Life moved on. Oliver grew. He laughed for the first time. He rolled over. He started to crawl. Our house was filled with the happy chaos of a new baby. The memory of the gender reveal party and the ugly confrontation that followed began to feel like a scene from a movie, a story that had happened to someone else. One evening, about a year after Oliver was born, I was cleaning out a closet and found the box Liam had brought out at the reconciliation dinner. Inside, underneath the blue dinosaur onesie that Oliver had long since outgrown, was the pink one. I took it out and held it in my hands. It was a relic from a battle we had won, a symbol of a future that could have been. Liam came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist, resting his chin on my shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "Just everything," I said, my voice soft. Everything that happened. Everything that could have happened. But it didn't, he said firmly. We didn't let it. I leaned back against him, holding the tiny pink outfit. The past was no longer a source of pain. It was a scar, a reminder of our strength, a reminder of what we had overcome together. A few weeks later, a letter arrived in the mail. It was a plain white envelope with no return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Jenna. My hand trembled as I opened it. I expected an apology, a plea for forgiveness, a sign that she had finally understood the depth of her cruelty. But it was not an apology. It was a single page, front and back, filled with her cramped, angry scrawl. It was a list of every perceived slight and injustice I had ever committed against her, going all the way back to our childhood. The time I got a better grade on a test. The time our parents bought me a bike she wanted. The time a boy she liked asked me to a dance. It was a pathetic, delusional litany of a victim, a manifesto of jealousy. The letter ended with one final, chilling sentence. You think you won, but you didn't. You stole my life. I hope you're happy with what you've taken from me. I read the letter and I felt nothing. The rage was gone. The hurt was gone. There was only a profound and weary pity for this small, broken person who was so consumed by her own bitterness that she couldn't see the world in any other way. She had learned nothing. She was still trapped in the same toxic cycle, only now she was all alone in it. I walked over to the fireplace where a low fire was burning against the evening chill. Liam was on the floor, building a tower of blocks with Oliver, who was squealing with delight every time it fell over. I looked at my husband, my beautiful son, our warm and happy home. This was my life. The life she accused me of stealing. But I hadn't stolen it. I had built it. With love, with patience, with forgiveness for those who deserved it, and with boundaries for those who did not. I held the letter over the flames. I watched as the edges curled and blackened, her angry words turning to ash. I let it go, and the fire consumed it completely. Liam looked up at me, a question in his eyes. Was that from her? He asked quietly. I nodded. Is everything okay? He asked, his expression concerned. I smiled, a real, genuine smile, free from all the shadows of the past. I went over and sat on the floor with him and our son, the warmth of the fire on my back. Everything is perfect, I said, reaching out to ruffle Oliver's soft hair. She finally understands what it feels like to be irrelevant,